Hello and welcome to the Fit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Jackie Lindal. I am a mom of two, an avid coffee drinker, and a certified personal trainer. I have been in the fitness industry for nearly 10 years, and I help women get fit, strong, and lose weight without losing their damn minds. If you're looking for help on achieving your health, weight loss, and fitness goals without all the fitness industry confusion and BS, you have come to the right place. Hello and welcome back to the Fit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Jackie. Thank you so much for listening. Today is just a solo episode, just me, myself, and I. But I just wanted to say I truly, really enjoyed having Susan Niebergall on in my last episode. And if you haven't listened to my episode with Susan, please go back and listen to it either after you listen to this one or right now. It was honestly one of my favorite podcasts, probably the best favorite podcast that I've ever done. And she was just so unbelievably awesome to share her story with me. And then also just the advice that she gave for people exactly in her situation and really just everything. Honestly, it was everything. And anyways, so if you haven't had a chance, please go back and listen to that episode because it was a really good episode. Little bit, let's do life update. I don't really have a whole lot to update, but we are at the end of September now, and it has been summer was just a blur. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but summer was a total and complete blur for me and probably for anybody. Um, I just felt like it was June, and then before I knew it, it was September. Like, it was just, it completely went by so quickly. And we did not get the things done, accomplished that we were hoping to. And there was just so many things I think like going on that we were trying to have summer, but then I was also having some issues with like my animals. And then we had projects that we weren't anticipating that had to get done at home that we had to do. So then other projects got put on the back burner. And such is life. So now here we are literally at the end of September, and even September flew by. I could have swore that it was September long weekend last weekend. And we're already gearing up for October, which is crazy. Yeah, so it was a really busy month with my oldest starting kindergarten and then also just kind of winding things down. I still have so many things that I need to do before the snow flies, and it inevitably snows in October every year. I know this. I have lived in Alberta my entire life, and I still have to take my garden out because I still have my garden not taken out at all. So that is on my list of things to do hopefully this week, but I also said that last week. So you can see how things have gone this month. Anyways, that's my mini life update. Otherwise, nothing really that interesting going on. Today I wanted to actually talk about, I did a post in both my client group and my free Facebook group. By the way, if you're not in my free Facebook group, I will put the link in the show notes. Feel free to join. This is my like women's only, open to anybody, free Facebook group where I just post some different content than I do online, as well as doing more, I guess, like more exclusive content in that group, and lots of helpful advice, lots of helpful things in that group. So just if you haven't yet, please run to the show notes, click on the link and request to join the group, and I will add you in. So anyways, in those groups, I posted a post not that long ago because it was prompted by a client asking me, she was having trouble with her fat loss goals. And she said, well, what would you do? And I said, I will outline for you exactly what I would do if I was in your shoes and looking to lose fat. So I'm not particularly looking to lose weight right now, but here's a list of things that I would do if I was wanting to lose weight or lose body fat. And it's 10 different things that I feel like would be really helpful for somebody if they just don't even know where to start when it comes to their fat loss goals, or they feel like they're being pulled in 100 different directions by things online. It's a very simplified list of 10 steps that you can take to achieve your fat loss goals. So here we go. Number 1, I would calculate my calorie goal and I would track every day, especially weekends. So the reason why I say that I would track every day is because I know that calorie tracking works for me. I've talked about this 100 times and I'll keep talking about it more. It's not always the best approach for every single person. But for me, I'm a numbers girl. I like seeing the numbers. I appreciate the numbers. I like having the numbers. And for me, it's my way of I cannot bullshit myself when I'm calorie tracking. And it keeps me so much more in check, especially since I am a big mindless eater sometimes, where I will have bites and nibbles and handfuls and I don't even think about it. And if I don't track it, then I know that it's going to get out of hand. So it forces me to have to track those kinds of things. So I'm just so much more honest with myself when I am calorie tracking. So for me, that would be step number one is I would calculate my calorie goal. There's tons of different calorie calculators online. Like you can just Google calorie calculator. They're all out there. They all might give you slightly different results, but you just either pick one and try it for 3 or 4 weeks and see how it goes. Another really simple calorie calculation that you can use, this is not mine. I stole this from Jordan Syatt. Like I steal everything from him, is you just take your goal weight, an approximate goal weight. If you don't know what your goal weight is, just pick a number and multiply it by 11 or 12. And that would give you a calorie deficit. And then you stick to that number for about 3 to 4 weeks, see what your progress is like, and adjust from there. So that would be my step one. Step one is I would calculate my calorie goal and I would track every day. And for me, when I say especially weekends, it's because that tends to be where I fall off is on weekends, just like every other person on planet Earth. It's so easy to stay in a routine Monday to Friday, but Saturday and Sunday often can be a wash. So for me, it would be imperative that I track on weekends because I already know that's when I fall off. So that's when I really have to double down on my tracking. It's not that I have to be perfect on weekends, but I need to be honest with myself on weekends. So that is exactly what I would do. The other thing that I would do in this is instead of worrying about a dogmatic number that I have to hit every single day, I would rather focus on a weekly average calorie goal rather than it being I have to hit 1800 calories or whatever that number is exact every single day. I would aim for an average. So that gives me some days that I can be a little bit higher, some days I can be a little bit lower, but I'm averaging out about 1800 or whatever that number might be at the end of the weekend. So that's number one. Number two is I would print off my consistency calendar and track my consistency for at least 4 weeks. Now, I've talked lots about my consistency calendar, and I will also put a link for that in the show notes. Um, the reason why I like the consistency calendar, again, this is something I stole from Jordan Syatt. This isn't even mine, but all it is that I did is it's just a 30-day Excel spreadsheet that I made. Actually, it's 35 days because I did 5 weeks instead of 4, but it's a 35-day Excel spreadsheet. And what I do is I write out my list of goals, whatever those goals might be. It might be nutrition related, might be steps related, it might be my workouts, whatever it is. And then I track every single day when I hit my goal and every single day when I don't hit my goal. Then at the end of that 30 to 35 days, I see how consistent I actually was. Now, keeping in mind, my goal, especially for nutrition, is to not be 100% consistent. My goal is to be about 80%. If I can hit 80% consistency, mostly with my nutrition goals, I'm nailing it. I really try to hit 100% consistency with my steps goals, just because that just gets me moving and gives me a point to move every single day. So that's just me. But for nutrition, I really encourage my clients, and I also do it for myself, that I'm aiming for 80% consistency. And it requires me to be honest again with myself on how I'm actually doing. This is something that Susan and I had talked about is, I'll have clients or people come and tell me, swearing up and down, that they're doing everything right. I'm doing everything right with my nutrition. I'm doing everything right with my workouts, but I'm not making progress. And the first question, especially if it's a client, I will ask is, have you been tracking your consistency? And when they say no, then I say, okay, you bust out your consistency calendar and prove it to yourself how consistent you've actually been. Because most of the time when people think that they're being consistent, myself included, generally speaking, they're not being as consistent as they feel like they have been. And there's a big difference between being in the mentality of consistency and actually being fucking consistent. Huge difference. So that would be step number two, is I would automatically print off my calendar. I put it at my desk where I work every single day and I see it every day. So then I fill it out with whatever goals I'm going to be using. And I track my consistency for at least 4 weeks. That is like my must do whenever I'm in a fat loss phase. Number three is I would aim for my workouts for 3 to 4 days a week. And again, tracking those on my consistency calendar. So For me, honestly, I'm very consistent with my 3 to 4 days a week with my workouts. However, though, it would just mean that I have to double down on my consistency if I had a fat loss goal in my mind, and that I would also be tracking those on my consistency calendar, making sure that I'm getting those done every single week, like my goal is. Other things that I would honestly do this for myself, and I encourage my clients to do it, is I go through my week every single week and I schedule my workouts in my calendar. So I don't know about you, but Google Calendar literally runs my life down to like little reminders, down to like I'm having supper with my parents on Friday night, down to I need to pick up a prescription at the pharmacy before I go and get my kids from daycare. Like Google Calendar runs my life. If it's not in my calendar, I will forget about it every single time. And so for me, that was a huge game changer in my schedule and in my life, especially being a self-employed person where work oftentimes kind of takes over, where I would rather some days do a podcast or I'm emailing clients and I get carried away and then I don't get a workout in. So for me was implemented this like years ago. The biggest game changer for me is literally going through my week every single day and I will schedule my workout and I will schedule any cardio or any other movement that I want to do during that week so that I know that I already set time aside for it. And I usually do this on like Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes even Friday for the week before, because planning ahead my workouts in my week, A, makes sure that I put time aside for them, and B, takes away the excuse of, oh, I didn't have time, which is the most common excuse that everybody has. And we all live busy lives. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't believe that you're busy. I know you're busy, which is why you literally have to schedule that shit. It feels dumb putting it in your calendar. Like if you look at my calendar, I will literally pull it up right now. I have a workout scheduled tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. I don't love doing my workouts at 2 to 3 p.m., but that's when I have time to do it tomorrow. So I have to schedule it in because if I don't schedule it in, it won't get done. So for me, that's the biggest thing is aiming for my workouts 3 to 4 days a week and scheduling that shit in so that I do not miss it. Number 4 is I would aim to get at least 8,000 steps a day. Now I'm pretty diligent on my step goal. I aim for at least 7,500 to 8,000 steps a day, kind of regardless of where I'm at in my journey. Mainly because I surprisingly, for a personal trainer, sit on my ass a lot for my job because I work solely online now. So I do sit a lot in my job, which means that I have to make a point to moving. In the summertime, it's really easy for me to get steps in a day because I periodically take breaks throughout the day. I'll go outside, get some chores done, things like that. In the wintertime, I struggle to get 7,500 steps a day. So for me, it would be aiming for that goal. Again, I would also track it on my consistency calendar. And I have to make a point to get those steps in throughout the day, no matter what I'm doing. So if I am going grocery shopping, I park at the back of the parking lot. I'll do an extra lap around the store. If I'm going to go pick up my daughter, I usually park down the street and I walk to go pick her up from kindergarten. So that I'm getting just in that trip there and back at least an extra probably 1,000 to 1,500 steps in my day just by parking down the block and going to pick up my daughter rather than waiting in the stupid fucking pickup line. I hate that pickup line, by the way. I hate it. Hate it. Anyways, that's besides the point. So that would be my minimum 8,000 steps a day. Not only is getting in more steps and increasing your non exercise activity thermogenesis, or also known as your NEAT, not only is that good for your fat loss goals because it helps increase your daily calorie burn and it gets you moving more, but it's also just good for your overall health. It's good for your overall health, your mental health, your physical health, just to get moving more throughout the day. So that is my minimum of 8,000 steps a day. I usually try to shoot for 10 if I can, but not every day gets to 10. So 8,000, if I hit that, I'm happy. Number 5 is if I fall off track, because I will fall off track, because that happens, I make it a point the next meal, whatever that meal looks like, snack, however, I'm back on track. So a lot of people, when they're going through a fat loss phase, this happens a lot on weekends. They will say be really strict Monday to Friday. Saturday comes along, they'll go out for breakfast with their family. And then they decide that they're going to go for a walk with a friend. Great, love it. Physical activity, and they'll get a coffee. But then they also get a snack. And then it starts to spiral from there. Then they're tired. It's Saturday. I don't want to cook. So they order pizza. And then Saturday night, they kind of think, well, shoot, I've kind of eaten out a lot today and I haven't really eaten on track. Well, fuck it. I'll just start over on Monday. And then they use Monday as a total excuse to binge. And then it spirals from there, oftentimes. So if I fall off track, if it's an unplanned, I would say fall off track. Like, for example, we go out to dinner and I didn't really plan ahead for it or anything like that. I just make sure that the next meal, whatever it is, I'm just back to normal routine. This kind of goes along with some people really dig into the self-sabotage when they fall off track unexpectedly, or even when it is expected. They have their friend's birthday or whatever it might be, and they get in their head about what happened, whether it was you ate too much, you drank too much, which led to you eating too much, and then you didn't get a workout in, whatever it is. They really get in their own head about these things and they feel like, well, fuck it. What's the point? And then they allow themselves, they basically justify them falling off. And they use this, especially comes in handy with any person who has ever told me, I'm an all or nothing person. Every single person who has told me that they are an all or nothing person will use that as a justification to allow themselves to completely fall off track and self-sabotage their own fat loss goals instead of letting themselves have that meal out, whatever it is, and then just getting back on track the next meal and or the next day, depending on what's going on. So for me, of course, I went through this phase as well where I was an all or nothing person. What was the point if I was going to eat pizza on Friday? What was the point in even trying if I just am going to fuck it up anyways? So number one, it was for me letting go of the I fucked this up mentality and just accepting that no matter what you do, as long as you don't quit, you can't fuck this up. You can't. As long as you don't quit, you can't fuck this up. Doesn't matter. Full stop. The other thing is for me, I had to stop the self-sabotage cycle. And one phrase that really helped me was like the phrase of, if you get a flat tire and you're stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire, do you go and slash your other 3 tires? No, of course not. That self-sabotage loop serves no purpose. It doesn't help you with your goals, whatever those goals actually might be. It doesn't even have to be a fat loss goal. So that phrase actually really kind of put things into perspective for me, is that why would I go and slash my other tires if I get a flat tire? That's silly. I would just change my tire and limp along the road, getting back on the road. So for me, that really helped change my perspective. So if I have a fat loss goal in mind and I get off track, or Thanksgiving or is coming up for as an example, I would simply have that meal, enjoy that time, and then the next meal, I just make sure that I'm back on track. That's it. Number 6, I would aim for at least 7 hours of sleep per night. That's within my control. I do have young kids. So sleep is what I feel like is the underrated and underutilized superpower for achieving not just weight loss, but really any health and fitness goal. Sleep is your superpower. Now, I understand it's easier said than done, especially for new parents, parents of young kids, shift workers, women going through menopause. Sleep is usually a huge challenge. So I understand that this is one of those kind of easier said than done. But if it is within your control, getting at least 7 hours of sleep per night, or just getting better sleep than what you're getting right now, is a huge game changer, because sleep affects so many things throughout our day. Not only does it affect our energy and us feeling like a sack of shit or not feeling like a sack of shit in our day, but it also affects your decision making, your willpower, for lack of a better phrase, the willingness to want to work out, the willingness to want to eat well, meal prep. Oftentimes when we're sleep deprived, we have more cravings and we're more likely to give in to those cravings, maybe when we don't particularly want to. So sleep is honestly one of the best things that you can do for mental health, physical health, stress levels, which also affect your ability and willingness to want to stick to your goals. Honestly, if you know that your sleep is crap and there are things that are to be changed that are within your control, start making those changes. Because it is such an unbelievable, simple thing that you have within your control most of the time. Such as just turning off your fucking phone and going to bed at a reasonable hour, making sure that you aren't, doom scrolling, watching Netflix till late in the night, setting yourself some hard boundaries around your sleep and sticking to them. Easier, there it's not always easy. I get that. But if it is within your control, 100% making sure that you are getting in a good amount of sleep, because it will help for so many different aspects of your life, especially if you're in a fat loss phase. Number 7 is aim to hit my protein and fiber goal at least 80% of the time. This goes along with my other nutrition goals, like my calorie goal. I would also go and calculate a protein and a fiber goal. So for a protein goal, how do you calculate that? You take your same goal weight or lean body mass weight that you use for your calories, and you multiply that in pounds by 0.8 to 1 gram. Somewhere in there. 0.8, 0.9, 1, doesn't matter. Then you take that protein goal and you aim to hit that at least 80% of the time. Fiber goal, they do have, I can't remember the exact calculation for fiber goal at the moment. It's like it's like 10 grams or something like that for every 1,000 calories or something like that you're eating. Don't quote me on that. But a general rule of thumb that I go for myself and most of my clients, for women, trying to hit 25 grams of fiber a day, for a male, trying to hit 30 to 35 grams of fiber a day. Can you get more? Absolutely, you can get more. But I save that as the minimum. So I would aim to hit those goals again at least 80% of the time. So you could include this and track this in your consistency calendar, especially if you struggle with protein goals, which is something that I find a lot of women struggle with initially, is hitting that protein goal. It's not something that is easy to do at first, because most women, when they're coming in first training with me, I would say a good majority of them are only eating maybe 60 to 75 grams of protein a day. It's not awful, but if you are in a fat loss phase and you want to maintain your muscle mass while you're in a fat loss phase, you need to hit more protein. You need to eat more protein. There's many reasons why hitting protein is super important, including it helps you feel more full and satisfied. It will help you maintain your muscle mass while you're in a fat loss phase, because a lot of people don't really think about this. When you lose weight on the scale in 3 different ways, usually a combination of all 3. 1, water weight, which comes and goes very, very quickly. It's usually the first few pounds that somebody loses when they're in a calorie deficit. Number 2 is from your body fat. That's really the weight that we truly want to lose, is our body fat. And number 3 is muscle. And if you aren't eating enough protein and you're not strength training in a fat loss phase, then your body may choose to sacrifice your muscle to make up that energy deficit rather than your fat. And this is how people can get that kind of skinny fat look, like they're skinny, but they don't have a lot of muscle on them. That's how that can happen, is because you're in a calorie deficit, you're not eating a lot of protein, and your body will sacrifice muscle over fat. So whereas if you're strength training and you're eating enough protein, it signals to your body, hey, we need to keep this. And it'll force your body to use your stored body fat to make up that energy deficit. So that is one of the many reasons why protein is super important. The other reasons are it helps you stay more full in a calorie deficit. Duh, we already knew that. And the last one of the last ones that I'll talk about, is it actually helps increase your calorie burn throughout the day. Slightly increases your calorie burn throughout the day. The reason being is that protein takes quite a bit of energy to digest and utilize within your body. So the higher protein diet is actually going to be better for you for fat loss, because you'll be burning more energy digesting and utilizing that protein versus a lower protein diet. They've actually done studies on this where they have done a high protein group and a low protein group. Calories were equated, but one group had higher protein than the other. And the high protein group, even though they were eating technically the same amount of calories as the low protein group, actually lost more weight because of the energy burn from eating higher protein. It put them in a slightly more calorie deficit, even though calories were equated for their intake. So I found that study to be super interesting, and one of the many reasons why protein is super important when you're in a fat loss phase. Now let's talk about fiber. Fiber obviously being really good for your digestion, very good for your overall health, given the vitamins and essential vitamins and nutrients and things like that that are in those foods. Not only that, higher fiber foods, when we talk about things like vegetables, fruits, leafy greens, all that kind of stuff, generally those foods are lower in calorie, but you can eat them in higher amounts because they're so low in calorie. So high fiber foods, you can eat quite a bit of, feel very full with because they help fill you up, and also eating low calorie, which makes it easier to be in a calorie deficit while still eating a decent amount of food. So those would be the two big things that I would focus on is protein and fiber. And I would actually focus on protein and fiber more so than carbohydrates and fats. So for me, if I'm hitting my calorie goal, I'm hitting my protein goal, and I'm hitting my fiber goal, I'm nailing it. I'm crushing it. I don't give a flying fuck what my calorie or what my carbs and fats are. And a lot of clients will ask me like, oh, what should my carbs be at? What should my fats be at? If you're hitting your calories, you're hitting your protein, you're hitting your fiber, it doesn't matter. Unless you have goals to jump on a bodybuilding stage, at that point, yes, you would have to adjust your calorie and your fat goals and be super, super meticulous about that. But if you're listening to this podcast, let's be honest, you're probably not a bodybuilder because neither am I. And so those goals are less important, I would say, than hitting your calorie, protein, and fiber goals. Number 8 is I would focus on more whole foods and less processed foods. Now, I say whole foods in that more so I say whole foods just to put in your mindset of the types of foods that I would want you to focus on. Essentially, it's more so minimally processed versus ultra processed foods. And it's not that ultra processed foods are bad. They're not. Ultra processed foods have their place. And all foods, no matter what spectrum of food you're looking at, all foods are processed to a certain degree. Even fruits and vegetables are picked off of a tree. Even fruits are picked, they're washed, they are cleaned, they are bagged, they are sent to the supermarket. Like that is a process. So the reason why I say focusing on more whole, minimally processed foods is because generally those are the foods that are going to give you a good amount of nutrients, as well as help keep you full. And they're generally harder to overeat than more processed foods. So let's just take, for example, a meal of some kind of protein like steak or chicken, some kind of some kind of salad with different leafy greens in it, peppers, tomatoes, all that kind of stuff in that salad. Whatever you want to imagine as salad. For some odd reason, my mind's blanking on salad ingredients. And then potatoes as your carbohydrate. Some kind of a meal like that is going to be a lot harder to overeat than a meal of Kraft dinner with maybe a more processed type food, like a more processed meat like sausage or chicken nuggets or something like that, and some kind of maybe more processed type of vegetable. It's not that ultra processed foods are bad for you. It's not that they can't have their place in a healthy diet, because they absolutely can. It's that if you put the majority of your diet into more of the whole foods, not only will it positively impact your nutrition, your fiber intake, your protein intake, but it will also be a lot harder for you to overeat when you're in a calorie deficit. So that would be the reason that I would make that switch. Now, I'm not talking about organic versus conventional here, not talking about any of that kind of stuff, because let's be honest, that doesn't fucking matter. I'm just more so talking about choosing apples over applesauce. that kind of stuff. Number 9, things that I would do if I was wanting to lose weight is I would give it time and a fuck ton of patience. Because a lot of people go into a weight loss goal, a fat loss goal with some kind of arbitrary timeline in their mind. Now, there's nothing wrong with a timeline. There's nothing wrong with having a goal in mind to reach by a date. But you need to set your expectations differently than you think. A lot of people will have an expectation that's maybe a little bit too high for the short-term goals. A lot of people, there's a popular saying out there that I'm going to totally butcher it, and I'm not sure where it came from, and this will be a paraphrase of it, but most people overestimate what they can do in a month and underestimate what they can do in a year. So the reason why I say give it time and a fuck ton of patience is don't tie your success to losing 10 pounds in 4 weeks. Instead, think about the goals that you need to achieve in 4 weeks, such as a consistency goal. And such as maybe you want to hit a certain amount of workouts in that 4 weeks. That would be a more realistic goal to work towards in 4 weeks than I need to lose X amount of pounds in that month. Otherwise, then I've shot my goal to shit. Otherwise, then what's the point? It's just shot to shit. The other reason I say give it a fuck ton of patience is so many people are so impatient when it comes to their goals. You got to remember this. If you have an extra 20 pounds to lose, you've likely gained that 20 pounds very slowly over the course of 2 to 5 years. 2 to 5 years it possibly took you to gain that extra 20 pounds. You're not going to lose it in 3 fucking months. And if you do lose it in 3 fucking months, it's not going to stay around much longer than 3 fucking months. If you want to do this right, this is something I tell my clients all the time. If you want to do this fucking right so you don't have to do it again. And by that, I mean, you're going to slow down. You're going to write out your process. You're going to make it a more enjoyable process. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And that's why you need that fuck ton of patience to go along with it. Because oftentimes people go in too hard, too fast, and they run out of steam because they get disappointed that they didn't lose 10 fucking pounds in 4 weeks, and then they want to give up. In all honesty, you need to give the I give up option the boot. You need to really let go of the option of quitting and quit justifying allowing yourself to quit. Whereas if you go in it with, I just want to do, you could still have a weight loss goal. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to lose 10 pounds, but I'm also going to get healthier. I'm also going to get stronger. I'm also going to have more energy, feel better, sleep better. Focusing on all of those goals, not just one, but all of them, you'll get so much farther in the long run than you will if you just solely focus on that 10 pounds. Number 10, this goes along with number 10, is I wouldn't tie my success to just the scale. I would also, so for me, especially when I'm working with clients, but especially when I'm doing goals for myself, such as number 10, I would not tie my success to just the scale. So for myself, especially for myself, but also for my clients, I am a big advocate of using multiple measures of progress throughout your journey and not just focusing on the scale or one area of progress. So even for myself, I will use progress photos. I will use measurements. I will check my strength during, how's my strength improving? How's my sleep? How's my energy? How's my mood? How's my clothes fitting? How do I feel in my clothes? All of those things to me are measures of progress that matter just as much, if not more, than the scale. Because the scale is only one tool. It's a tool. It can be a helpful tool, but so many people put way, way too much emotion and let the scale control everything that they do. And then when the scale doesn't say the exact number that they thought that they would say in the timeline that they thought it would happen, they just feel like all is lost and they want to give up. I literally had a conversation with a client about this last week because even though she's been super diligent, she's been tracking her consistency, she's been making progress in her progress photos, but the scale didn't change to reflect the way that she thought that it should. She was having a fucking conniption. And I mean, I don't blame her. I get it. It's hard when you are so emotionally attached to the scale for so long in your entire life. And the only things that you were told about the scale growing up is if it goes down, that's good. And if it goes up, that's bad. But she was forgetting all the other amazing progress that she made because the scale wasn't telling her the exact fucking number that she wanted to hear. So we had to have a bit of a come to Jesus talk about how the scale is only one tool, and you also need to look at all of these other things. Because if I have a client like her who where the scale maybe not isn't changing much, but she's staying super consistent with her workouts, she's doing way better with her nutrition, actually tracking her nutrition and tracking her consistency and learning more about nutrition. She is making progress with her measurements. Her progress photos are showing changes. She's getting out there. She's active. She's enjoying life more. I don't give a flying fuck about what the scale says. I don't give a shit. It's just one thing, but she's improving in all of these other areas. Then I don't care if the scale's not changing. It can be a useful tool, but people often tie their emotions far too much into that scale. So the way that I explained it to this client was think of the scale as its data. You're collecting data, and think of it as a number that is just, it's a number similar to your blood pressure, similar to your height. Your weight is kind of along the same lines as those numbers. It's just a number, gives us some data, and that's about it. And if you're having other changes in other areas, then we don't worry so much about what the scale says. And so for me, for myself, I would take progress photos every 4 weeks. I would also do measurements every 4 weeks. I would track my workouts, what I'm doing during those workouts, so I can see whether I'm getting stronger every week or not. I would track my consistency so that I can see how consistent I've been this month, maybe versus last month. And those would be the things that I would really truly focus on. And I would use the scale as a data point, but not tying all of my success to it. So there you go. I hope that you found those helpful. I'll go over them one more time just so that you have an idea, because I know I talked a lot about each point that we might have forgotten what the points were. So number 1, calculate your calorie goal and track if you feel like that's the right approach for you. Number 2, print off the consistency calendar and track your consistency with your workouts, your nutrition, and whatever else goals you want to do for at least 4 weeks. Number 3, I would aim for hitting my personal workouts 3 to 4 days a week. Number 4, I would aim to hit at least 8,000 steps a day. Number 5, get back on track if you fall off track. Number 6, aim to get at least 7 hours of sleep at night. That's within my control. Number 7, aim to hit my protein and fiber goals at least 80% of the time, tracking those with a consistency calendar if I have to. Number 8, focusing on more whole foods over processed foods. Number 9, giving it time and a fuck ton of patience. And number 10, not tying your success solely to the scale. So I hope that you found those helpful. Again, if you haven't yet, please feel free to join my free ladies only group. Just click on the link and ask to join, and I will add you in. If you don't already, please feel free to follow me on social media. I'll also post my Instagram in the show notes. That's the best place to find me. If you have questions about my online programming or training, I actually do have client spots currently open. This will probably be my final intake of clients before 2025. So if you are interested in getting yourself started with your health and fitness goals before Christmas and everything comes up, definitely feel free to head to my website, www.fitlikeagirl.ca. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave a 5-star written review. They just help increase views of and visibility of the podcast so that more people can listen in. Anyways, thanks so much, and I will talk to you again soon.